Very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for those who've joined well in time. And I think since we have a really power packed session planned for today, we're going to start dot on time. Very warm welcome to everyone to our third workshop as part of the Global Evaluation Week. To just kind of start and begin, let me set a quick agenda of what we will be doing today. So I think to begin with, like everyone's asking, are we on mute? I hope everyone can hear me now. But we'll spend a couple of minutes on just introductions, a little bit of expectation setting, some housekeeping rules, and an overview of what we're going to do today. I will then be giving a really short presentation to demystify this concept of institutionalizing monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning. And post that, we'll do a very interactive Mentimeter sort of based session on things that we had shared with you in the pre-read in that reflection sheet. We do want to make this very conversational. It's not me, going to tell you what to do, but I think we also want to hear from all of you today, however big the group is. I'm being ambitious here, but to really get a sense of how all of you are doing certain things. And I think there's lots to learn from a group of 120 people. Um, After that, like I said, we'll go into each of these sections through Mentimeter. We'll do some polls, we'll do some experience sharing, and then we'll have a little bit of time, fingers crossed, on Q&A, and if there's something else that came up or you need more clarity on. So that's an overview of this session. Before I start, I think I should introduce myself. I'm Sharon Weir. I'm one of the co-founders at Fourth Wheel. I have been working in the sector for over 15 years now, and I think I bring a little bit of technical expertise to how to do monitoring and evaluation within development organizations in the country. I would really urge all of you to use the chat box and probably introduce yourselves, a little bit about where you're from. It would really be nice if you could also put a line or two on, what kind of work your organization does, but don't spend too much time on it. But it would be really nice to see who's in the room. Another thing that I would definitely like to start off this workshop in is, why are we doing this? I think a lot of organizations right now, are saying, if we have the money, let's do monitoring evaluation. If a donor supports us, then let's do monitoring evaluation. Monitoring evaluation for a lot of organizations mean commission a study, and that's the narrative. That's the narrative we really want to shift, that it's not a one time reporting exercise. It's not about a report, but it's about how do you embed it within your organization. So you're not going to a donor and saying, I want to do a study, but you are saying the indicators I collect, the data I collect, the way I do my work is very, M&E is very much part of the way I view, the work my organization does. So that's kind of where we coming from. I would also like to say that one of the things that we always want to do is, it's great to talk about theory, but I want all of you today to take away one idea, one action point, or one solution from this session. If all of you can do that, I think my job is done here. So that's kind of how we've designed the session, to make it very practical, very actionable, so that you can actually take it back to your organization. The last thing is, this, and we'll talk a lot about it, and I want to hear from all of you as well. But I think this whole thing of रिपोर्ट हमें इवैल्यूएशन करना है, डोनर ने मांगा है, कंप्लायंस, टू सेइंग नहीं, हमें एक्चुअली इवैल्यूएशन इसलिए करना है क्योंकि हमें देखना है कि हम वी वांटेड टू इम्प्रूव health access in a rural community by setting up a telemedicine center. Now you break that down. Access मतलब क्या? Access मतलब आपके घर के पास है. Access मतलब you are not spending that much money. So I think, I'm sorry, I see there's a lot of international participants, so I'm going to keep it in English. But what I'm trying to say is if you are setting up a telemedicine center to improve health access, then I think it's very important to not just then, report to your donors, oh, I had 500 people come to my telemedicine center. No, we break down the concept of what does access mean. Access could mean proximity. I have a health center which was 30 kilometers away. I have it now within a kilometer radius. Access could mean reduction in the cost to get healthcare. So earlier, because I had to go to a private hospital, I had to pay 5,000 rupees, and now because I have this telemedicine center within a 5 kilometer radius, I'm paying 100 rupees. So, really deep diving into not just saying, I need to tell the donor how many people came to my telemedicine center, but to actually see that, earlier the average access kilometer average distance was 30 kilometers, and now it's become 5 kilometers. And can I reduce it more? So I want all of you to think in that direction, that we need to move beyond compliance and saying what went well, but asking the question of what can we do better. So that's kind of where this workshop is going to take you, or at least facilitate that thinking towards with some examples. One disclaimer, because I was reading, the forms that you all filled up in terms of your expectations. This is not a technical session, so I won't be really saying how to make a theory of change, how to build indicators, etc. But I think I will direct you all in the sense to how to think about it, to give you ideas and examples on how to institutionalize MEL. So just a quick disclaimer that, I know some of you in the room have been to my training sessions, but this is not a training. This is a facilitation workshop to get us all thinking together about what does this concept mean and how can we do it better within our organizations. Um, Quick housekeeping rules. Cameras were supposed to be enabled. I think in the webinar setting, they are not. I would have loved to see everyone, but I think that's something we realized very late in the day that that's not possible. Sound is muted, but since it's going to be interactive, really request all of you to raise your hand, ask questions in the chat box, which I will be regularly looking at, and then we will unmute you to bring you in to provide perspective. Um, like I said, it's very boring for me to talk for 2 hours without having inputs from the group. I know it's a very large group. We have 174 people and now 178. But I still do urge all of you, whatever's coming to your mind, use the chat box. We will go back to it, but again, if we miss messages and it's really pertinent, please just paste it back. I also we will be using Mentimeter, like I mentioned. So before we start, let's get into the Mentimeter piece. I'm going to quickly share my Mentimeter screen. I hope all of you can see it. I'm going to look at the chat box and see if you can see it. And you're in, you can just write yes and in. Please scan the code. This is going to be the crux of our session today. So get on board. Super good to see everyone can get in. I think also the team has pasted a code. So just in case someone new joins and anyone from your team or anyone else, then please pass on the code. Super. Okay. I'm just going to wait a minute more to let everyone get the code. Just scan it, get in. And just to do a quick check on if it's working, if this is working for everyone. Quick question. Don't spend too much time. The first thing that comes to mind, what are your expectations from today's workshop? Just one sentence should be fine. anything you want to say, but it should make sense. But M&E, okay, great. Someone already has the sweat sign. This is not what I wanted to see, but uh, I'm glad. I'm taking that as excited. Okay, I have names coming in as well. This is great. So everyone can use Mentimeter. That's good to know. Kishore, I think the code is somewhere up in the chat. Just take a look if you can, or just write directly to Shivani or Jayashri. They will be able to help you. I love how a lot of you are using words that were in the reflection sheet. So that's amazing. There are some good students, can I call them, or participants or active participants within the group. So very good to see. All right. Okay. So I'm going to, I think there's still lots of things that come in. Okay. So good. I think we have we've done our check. I hope to kind of touch upon most of these things, but I hope also that if I don't, you all will hold me to it, ask me questions, use the chat box, and we have a good session together. Okay, that's it about our housekeeping rules. For those of you who joined a little late, really quickly before I jump in, we are going to start with me doing a quick overview of what do we understand at Fourth Wheel of institutionalizing MEL. Again, there is no hard and fast. There could be a lot of things that you all think about. For example, I haven't included things like sampling, haven't included things like, within teams, how do you organize teams, how do you build MEL systems. But at the same time, today's idea is to basically talk about what are the 10 things? What is institutionalizing meal? What does it mean? And post that, after my session, I will be doing a quick Mentimeter run facilitated workshop with all of you, asking a question, getting your answers, getting some qualitative insights, and then having some of you come in and talk about why there was a yes or why there was a no, or what other kind of things that prop up in your head. Yeah. So cool. Let me start with introducing the idea of MEL. Like I said, it is not monitoring and evaluation, accountability, learning is not an afterthought. It's not having a very well designed report. It is about saying that if I go to your organization tomorrow, I should, and I ask you, hey, over the last 2 years, we can take another example. You've been working with adolescent girls, and you've been working with adolescent girls on improving their physical and mental health, or you've been working with them on ensuring that they complete, their education till 12th grade. Can you tell me how many have you reached? How many have these numbers? If you tell me I did an impact report 2 years ago, that data is not probably real time, it's not updated. And so we need to set up a system where we can answer those questions on a regular basis. Now, what does institutionalizing MEL mean? I'm going to go into these 10 things. But number one is a shared vision. Now, in all my work over the last couple of years, if I go to the senior leadership, they're able to articulate the vision of their organization, what they want to do, in very well, uh, probably in language which probably is not understood. The donors understand it, but maybe your field teams or your communities don't understand it. The leadership would say something like, we want to empower women through livelihoods. The management would say, we want to ensure women's income increases by 10,000 rupees over a year. The field team would say, we want to actually just ensure that women feel like they have a safe space, they are able to use their skills, etc. So this shared vision, right, like what are we all working together, is a lot of times missing. Sometimes even within the same cadre of people, like within your field teams or your implementation teams, someone will say, I want to give them confidence, I want to give these women confidence. Someone will say, I want to give these women income. Someone would say something else. So I think the first aspect of institutionalizing monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning is to have a shared vision. And that is possible through a theory of change framework or an outcomes mapping framework. For this case, I'm going to use theory of change and give some examples here. But that's number one. Number two is, once we are all on the same page of why we are here and we are all using a similar language, we then need leadership. And when I say leadership, I don't only mean leadership, the founder or the co-founder or the CEO. There are leaders within your management cadre, there are leaders within your field teams, implementation teams. So we need the right leadership buy-in. And we need their buy-in in terms of, and we'll go into this, but saying, yes, I don't want just a report. Yes, I do want to track, how far I've come, where I've come. And I will invest the necessary time, money, and people to ensure that this process takes place. The next is team buy-in. A lot of times monitoring and evaluation is seen as a, I will come and judge you. Have you done your work well? And this creates a lot of stress, anxiety, and they also think of it as, Array, now I have to go and do one more. I have to go now, other than going and actually doing implementation, I have to now start collecting data. So, how do you build this ownership? How do you build this mindset shift? I'll give you an example of a lot of clients that I work with. When we go in and we make a theory of change, and this was a very big eye opener for me. I go and say, hey, but everyone has a different vision. And they say, no, but we know what we're doing. We're working with women. But then the next question is, okay, you're working with women. What is everyone's role? How can you, one, of course, ensure that you're implementing the program that you set out to do, but the other is also, how are you tracking what is happening? What is the change in these women? And that puts them on a back step. That says, are you trying to tell us we don't know what's happening? Of course, we go to the field every day. So, the way we kind of get our team to buy in is to say, if you have a real time dashboard which tells you which women you've reached, what are women saying, it might help you then, say, okay, this village is showing good results, but this village with women is showing very low participation. So let's use this data. So I think what I want to say here is, team buy-in just doesn't mean go do a training and say, okay, now everyone got to be on board. It's about making them understand the value addition of why this is important. Another thing that I've come together in the fourth point is capacity and skills. So, someone might say, and in our team as well, someone might say, hey, I'm very interested in actually working on a dashboard, but you don't have the skill. So I think, and this is also linked to your leadership and team buy-in. How do you train teams, and not just your M&E teams? How do you train teams again to have a shared language, but to have similar set of skills? Everyone doesn't need to be a master at dashboard. Everyone doesn't need to be a master at data collection, but identifying the right people to build these in-house M&E capabilities. The next, and I have a lot of examples on this one because I think this is the key to doing, to institutionalizing MEL, is, why do most organizations have questionnaires which are, 100 questions long, or indicators which are more than 50? So I think, I always tell my clients, whenever you're looking at indicators, ask two questions. One is, if this data tells me that, but so many percentage of, let me take an example of, so many percentage of farmers are using farmer advisory services, right? And it says 20% are using farmer advisory services. One, it helps me take action, that okay, I need to now relook at my program and see why is it only 20%. So one is I can take action, and two is it should be linked to your actual intervention, input, or program. So my program is for having an app for farmer advisory, and so that's completely linked. So now a lot of times people say things like, okay, let's ask, for in a menstruation program that we did, let's ask, do they have safe changing place, right? Do they have a safe changing place? But now my program is looking at reducing stigma, looking at how how positively they deal with their periods. I would not be able to do both the things. One, even if they don't have a safe changing place, I would probably not be able to take action because my program's not designed for that. And two, I'm not doing anything about that. So why do I have that indicator? So I hope this makes some sense. We'll be talking a lot more about this, but it's very important to have indicators which are linked, number one, and number two, that you can actually use to make some sort of course correction, take an action, improve your program, etc. And that's the core. And if you do this right, then you have higher team buy-in. You'll be able to build skills better. You will be able to reduce fatigue. You won't end up with data sheets and folders and folders of data which you don't really know what to do about. So that's very key. Then, of course, moving on to contextual tools. A lot of times we build them in English and then we give them to our teams and say, run with it. But your teams might be working in so many different dialects, so many different languages. And when I change a question to how do you feel today in Hindi or in Gujarati, or even if I ask something like, do you feel safe? If you don't ask it right, and if you don't cater for the different languages and to ensure the essence is maintained, this is a very simple question, you are really in for trouble. So I think number one, it's very important to ensure your language, your tools are locally translated into local languages. The other thing, for another example, is contextualize. Now, we in farm sizes, we use something like acres, but in different states in the country, and I'm sure it's applicable in Africa, in Europe, in different regions of the world, the units are very, very different. What things are called, like what an app is called. I might have the name of my app might be equip AI or something, but in the village they would know it as wo in Hindi, the Khedut app, right? So I think to even bring in those nuances of what would they like what would they relate to is very important, which a lot of times we miss. And so we have actually faced the brunt of that, where we've asked someone, about a government scheme, but they didn't know it like that. So what did we end up with? We ended up with 5% saying they knew the government scheme. And then we realized, but they don't know it as that name. The name is very different. And so you're not going to get the right data if you don't contextualize your tools as per local local contextual dialects, the way they frame them, etc. Next, one of my favorite and hot topics is tech. We recently did a webinar on moving from reports to dashboards, where 60%, and again it's very Indian sort of sample, but 60% was still using pen and paper. So when does that data get collected? When does it get cleaned? When does it get analyzed? And when does it come to you? So I think we really have a long way to go. But if you want to institutionalize M&E, then technology is a very, very core part of it. Um, We then have use of evidence. I think a lot of times, we just report 70% got 70% got this scheme, or 70% girls are showing improved learning outcomes, or 50% women are now building, are now earning an income. But like I gave an example of, what are you doing with that data? By each data point, every percentage that you calculate needs to have an action attached to it. 70% means I'm doing well. Then I will deep down and look at, okay, who is the 30% that I'm not doing well for? Why are they not doing well? So it's not just, again, and this feeds into my idea of monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning is not to prove your program works. It's to improve how your program works. And hence, use of evidence is key. Lastly, I think a lot on data ethics has come about, especially with, AI. I think some of you would have joined our session yesterday. We're working with people, and it's I think all of us in the social sector, I like to believe, have a bigger heart and have great intentions. So it's very important we keep that at the focus of what we do. And for that matter, data ethics, how you collect your data, how you store your data, how you share your data, is super crucial. And last, and thank you for listening very patiently to me, but the last is accountability and learning. There are some very interesting sort of pieces I've been seeing in the sector now, is talking about failure. Like, what's not working? Everyone just talks about these case studies and this worked great. But no one's talking about failure. And I'd like to give one example of, failure that I have witnessed firsthand. Is, we were working on maternal and neonatal mortality in Rajasthan. And we were doing this where they had, a very huge multilateral organization had been funding this program for 15 years, where they were giving these booklets for, women to kind of, after they deliver, they get these booklets of how to take care of the baby and themselves post delivery, postnatal care. We did a study to see, what are they understanding? And we realized more than 90% has just kept it as, a very good document in their cupboards, never read it, and don't know what's in that. So that's failure, right? And I think if that study would have been done earlier, we wouldn't have done 15 years of printing these small little booklets and giving it to women who can't read. I didn't want to be so pessimistic. So I said, okay, we had an intern from France at that time. And obviously she couldn't read Hindi. So, and they were just pictures, right? So I didn't want to be pessimistic and say, okay, because they can't read, they haven't seen anything. So I did this small experiment with her. And I said, all right, what do you see in these pictures? Because you can't read Hindi. And the things she said were just hilarious. It made no sense to what the pictures were saying and what should be understood in terms of postnatal care. Again, failure. Now, we need to be accountable for these things. We need to learn continuously. We need to get feedback, and we need to adapt. And so, a solution to all of this, to not leave you all with a very grim picture, the solution to all of this is, we realized that there were small television sets in a lot of the public health centers or in the CHCs where women deliver. And so we adapted this based on this learning to create local language short form videos to talk about postnatal care, which again, we took a lot of content from those booklets that were being shared, but it became more contextual. We became accountable for this. And of course, most importantly, we took people's feedback and, kind of moved ahead with doing something about the data. So I see there are some questions in the chat box. I will stop here just to give you all some breathing room. I'll just read the chat a little bit. If you all have some more comments, please put them in. Bear with me. Lovely. Yes, I think, a couple of questions, and this one is it comes up a lot to me about, should we have program theory of change or should we have organization level of theory of change? I'll answer that. But I think at the first, when you're jumping into an organization level institutionalizing, I think it's very important to have an organization sort of vision. And I'll show you a couple of examples of that. And then you can deep dive into specific programs. I don't think I have an example, but I can show you how we've done it if we have some time. I can definitely show you how we first built an organization level theory of change outcome map. And then each program was taken to see which of the outcomes they, kind of they align to. And then we built smaller ones for different programs. So great question. Um, I like this a lot. For a small NGO with limited resources, which top three would you pick to institutionalize MEL? I think it's not an either or. Right now, you see it's a flow diagram. I think they all feed into each other. For example, your shared language would feed into your team buy-in. Your indicators would feed into your shared language. Your tools are based on your indicators. Your use of evidence is based on real-time data, which is tech. So to answer your question, please don't pick any three. Create this vision of having all these things. You might have some, like you might have tech, which is a bit more mature, or you might have very, positive leadership buy-in. But I don't think you should see it as one or the other. They are all, it's like, can you pick any three body parts? I mean, if you have to, you could, but they all kind of make for a strong body, right? And that's kind of how you should be looking at it, Trupti. All right. Great, Dennis. I think we should definitely talk about this buy-in. I'll come to it. One last question I'm going to take of Dia, and really all participants, anything I miss or don't come and you think it should be addressed, we'll have some time for it. But Dia, I'm going to answer your question. How much time does it take to institutionalize MEL framework? I think it's always a work in progress, because as you grow, maybe today you're working in two locations, then you have maybe one program. So I think this is not something like any other function in an organization, right? It's not like you are going to have it's not a scoring system, right? You have 100% now I'm institutionalized. No, it's a work in progress. And I think that's what I want to do through this session. I want us to reflect on where are we doing well, where are we not doing well as an organization, and what kind of how do I say, what kind of steps do I need to take, who needs to take those steps. And yes, they are, it's an evolving thing, right? It's iterative. You're going to it's like any function in an organization. All right. Super. So, again, just to put a little bit of context on what we're going to do in the next slides, I'm going to take you through what I wanted to do was, if I want you all to leave with 3 points in each of these, what are they going to be? Because this, you can write, and there are already 100 books on the topic. But I just want each of you, like I started the session with, to take away one idea, one action, or one solution. And so I've tried to put in each of these things 3 things that you could do, or 3 things that you must kind of keep in mind when you start thinking about these things. So yeah, let's start with the theory of change or your outcome frameworks. I already mentioned this: shared vision and language. Why do you say, like, is there a linkage that if you're giving menstrual hygiene sessions to girls, is there a linkage with them feeling confident? You need to have these pathways. And yes, Nayanika, we will be sharing the presentation, all yours. But yes, so, how do you have, what are these pathways? And to someone whose question I answered, how do these programs relate to your broader goals? I will give you some examples. And then, very crucial, and people really tend to forget this, what tends to happen when people are doing outcome mapping or when people are doing theory of changes, we get in our teams. Most times it's leadership or management. Sometimes we get in our implementation teams. But we don't go and ask the communities. We don't go and ask our government partners. We don't go and ask our partner implementing organizations. So I think one thing, if you have to start building this, and you don't need to do a a mapping exercise or a workshop, but just ask, like, because of our work with with farmers, what change do you think happens? What do you think we are doing? And you'll get a bunch of different outcomes from other stakeholders other than just the management and leadership. Please do not just make your theory of change, your outcome mapping with your small set of people, because the amount you can think, you are undervaluing this program, you are undervaluing the change you're creating, because it's only coming from your mind and why you set out to do something that you wanted to do. I'll give you a really quick example on why this makes a difference. So doing some work on entitlements and government schemes, we had our whole list of, all right, we can unlock so much for them. They get, food through the public distribution system, etc., etc. And we didn't have anything about reducing the workload on already stressed government offices. And so when we went and started asking other stakeholders, we got that from the government that, because you all are there, we can reach depth and scale. Quality of our delivery has improved. It was nowhere in our theory of change. So I think, or when we went to the communities, they said, just the fact of knowing has empowered me. Like, how do I get access to a government scheme? Nowhere in our theory of change. So I think there's definitely, a lot of value in including stakeholders other than your management, your external consultants like us. You need to bring the people you actually work with other than your internal teams to develop this. Um, I've just kept some examples. Now, a lot of you would know a theory of change like this. A lot of you would kind of have something more simplistic like this. But what I want to show you over here is, however your theory of change looks, and again, going back to my disclaimer, it's not a technical session. Happy to discuss with anyone after this. But what this does for me and why I love this one is the first one is that it shows me the 5 things that are important to the organization. One, gender norms. Two, health and nutrition. Three, education. Four, violence. Five, economic security. And so everyone is not, someone's not saying confidence, someone's not saying income, someone's not saying something else. We are all using the same language, and it's very easy to digest and to kind of have a shared understanding with your donor, with your leadership, with your partner organizations, with your implementation teams, and even with your community, even with the people you work for. Another thing, I've noticed, and it's something that we all need to change together, is these theories of change or these frameworks are only being used in our proposals. It's not a living, breathing document which we keep going back to. So I think one thing, again, if you have to take away from this is um, TOCs, outcome maps, frameworks are not for okay, are for your donor to a very small extent. They are for your internal learning, for your internal dialogue, and for you to check the kind of difference and impact you're creating in among communities. So that's my two piece on theory of change. Going into and Dennis, like you asked a question on leadership buy-in. I think once I'm done with this little bit of orientation, we would definitely bring you in to hear your perspectives on why it's not happening, and we'll come to that. But what I want to say here is, what does it mean by leadership support? So number one, it's not, like I just mentioned, it's not enough to have a theory of change and then to give it to the donor. It's about ensuring that we can track these different things at a regular interval and giving the financial, human, technical support for that, right? And most importantly, not to say we've written our report and now, this is what we're going to use for the next 2 years to build our website content to raise more funds. No, it's about saying, guys, we've done great on these 5 things. We've done okay on these 2 things. And these are the 4 things which are not moving. How should we work on it? So, what worked, what didn't work, and what, kind of is kind of status quo. So, I think definitely one piece is to kind of put these buckets, right? So, for example, going back to this, I see that girls are definitely showing better dietary habits. I see that they are completing their 12th standard. But when we ask them, are they able to stand up for themselves and challenge gender norms? They aren't able to. So the leadership should be able to say, you know, I have succeeded here, kudos, but these are the things I need to address. And that is true leadership buy in. Not saying, okay, everything's worked great because I just need to show it to a donor. So this culture of learning, this culture of acceptance, this culture of recognizing failure is super important when you talk about leadership buy in. Neeraj, great question about, lots of different TOCs. It's a little technical, but I just like to say, for me personally, it's good to use outcome mapping to start with, because TOC can be in a log frame format. TOC can be like I showed you, this backwards mapping. TOC can just be something like this. So I think to start with, the idea of a TOC is to ensure all the different changes you want to bring about are on one paper, on one piece. So that's worked really well for me. So for those of you who are not aware, we can also Jayashree send some literature to our group today. But outcomes mapping is a much easier, nicer start to this process. I hope that answers your question. All right. Team support and buy-in. Not saying, oh, we have data collection in March, we have to give our report. We have data collection in Jan. Now, all of you stop doing what you're doing and go collect data. It should be integral. For example, if ever a girl is onboarded into a training center or a vocational a vocational training institute, there should be a profiling of that girl. There should be a post test that she does. So it's very much part of your program. It is not saying, okay, now you know what, we need to go get data from these people. Again, M&E can be quite complex. We still struggle, even though we've been working, it can be the same program in Bombay, a career counseling program for kids in Bombay, and a career counseling program for someone in Assam. It's so different. So you need these, specialized skills as to how to get context in, how to kind of, work with different teams. So that's how you will get buy-in. And most importantly, and this comes from our theory of change and our indicators. Who is collecting data? When is it being collected? How is it being analyzed? And when is it going to be reported, and to who? So this uniform processes, which I will show an example of, helps a lot to bring team buy-in, because then people are saying, hey, this is I have to collect girls baseline data, and then I mean before, when she joins, enrollment data, and then at the end of the program. And now I have it of 500 girls. So if you kind of create these processes, you make life easier, not more difficult. I think it could be a very good way to bring team support and buy-in. All right. Um, Everyone says, MEL capacity is really lacking and skills are really lacking. But I don't know. If you ask me, what are they lacking in? I think 3 things. How do you collect data? What tools do you use? How do you analyze data? And I don't mean you do R or SPSS or something, but how do you examine data? How do you even, start approaching data? So I think analysis is important. And then the most important is, how do you read data? How do you say that, okay, now 40% have said this, and ask the so what question? I think all teams need to be answering the so what question. So this slide basically shows that if you need to get your teams for training, then don't go in for a full blown, this is my personal and just me saying it, don't go to a full blown go and learn MEL because it's a huge space, as you all can see with my dialogue on this. But I think it's about, getting people to learn data collection, analysis, results interpretation, etc. Okay. I think I've already spoken about lean data principles, but I want to show you a quick example. This was a waste management program, and we took this is also some sort of an outcomes mapping. We didn't want to do too much. We said our program is looking at three types of stakeholders: the community, the government, the Bangalore Municipal Corporation, and the waste workers. And these are the three things we want to do for them. And then what we did was we set out the indicators. How do you measure this? And then we kind of did a baseline, put this in. If you can see, we put in some targets, we put in some timeline. So this streamlines when data needs to be collected, from who and how to use. Another example, again, there are different programs. This is a question to, there are different programs, but they're all leading to the similar sort of impact goal. And then we kind of went into each of the programs and looked at each of the outcomes, which is on on the on these. These are the outcomes which you'll see in your outcome mapping or your theory of change. These are the different indicators. These are the baselines. These are the targets. Who is going to, where are you going to get this data from? So this comes your tools. How often are you going to get the frequency of it, and who's going to be responsible? So this is kind of how then you can get, your teams to understand why you're collecting data, and different programs will have different sheets for this. Really quickly, I've already spoken about tools should be accessible, relevant, they should be valid, they should actually have the essence of the place that you are doing research in, and getting voice of, will this tool work? For fourth wheel, once we have developed a tool, we take it back to at least three different kinds of stakeholders. One, of course, the implementation team. We pilot it with the communities. And then, of course, we also show it to management and leadership to get their sense of things. So I think it's very important. And then they also have this ownership. They have this participation. They're adding value to your tools. I think data ethics in terms of three things again: keeping data ethics at the center of data collection, using it as you started out with, and storing it securely, and ensuring, like yesterday in our Read AI, sorry, Read AI, I'm saying in our AI workshop, one of the panelists said, don't post sensitive information on ChatGPT. So, these kind of small things are really important for ethical handling and, protection of participant data throughout the process. Moving on, I think we're going to talk about this, but analytics. You should be able to, what does it say of 70%? Where did you start from? Was it 20 before? Was it 70? Now it's 70. So one is, what is the time continuum? Where did you start? Where did you end? Very important. This, going after 2 months, I mean, after 2 years and doing a study doesn't really tell you much. Or if it says 70%, how does it compare? So one of the examples I can give is, percentage of girls reaching graduation. You have a lot of national indicators or international data which can tell you, okay, it's 40%, and in my program, 80% girls are reaching. So benchmarks are very important. And also moving beyond descriptive statistics. Like I said, if 70% are using the farmer advisory services, who is the 30%? How can you slice and dice that data so that you can actually measure and communicate where it's working and where it's not? last, and we'll get into our workshop, is accountability. A lot of times, these reports lie on our desk or they go to the donor. I really urge each and every one of you to take your research back to your communities and say, hey, this is where we see we have done very well. This is where we see we need to improve. Why do you think this looks like that? Take it back to your implementation teams, because I have seen such, you know, happy faces when people say, yeah, we worked really hard on improving math scores and that's why it's looking like that. Oh yeah, we didn't really focus on technology access and that's why it's looking like this. The motivation, this data, I mean, the data you share back with your teams is so powerful. And I think we are not doing justice to the amount of money we spend on evaluation studies and collecting studies. So, exactly, yes, they are. So, I think please take it back to diverse stakeholders. You don't need to take the whole report back. Crunch few things, just take out the main points. Who is it relevant for? Like, which kind of stakeholders? Also holding teams accountable, saying that, you know, this is great, but this is where we need to improve. What do you think we can do about it? Actively seeking feedback from your communities to improve programs and processes. And most importantly, just learning. I think find me one person who's never made a mistake, or find me one person who doesn't want to learn. So I think it's very important, again, to have that culture of accountability, continuous learning, and not just say, okay, our report's done for 2024-25. Great, done deal. How do you use it for, just doing better work? Thank you for being very patient with me. And I think I'm going to jump right into um, some polls if we can. Oops. Okay. So let's jump into a couple of polls. I guess all of you can see it. Can you? Okay, I can't wait for 131 people. I'm really sorry. But I think it's a good mix of those who have a theory of change and those who don't. I'm going to go to the next one. For those of you who do, the ones who don't, please don't answer. Do you all also do this external stakeholder sort of iterations? Oh, that's lovely to see, actually. Very nice. Okay. Um, can I ask someone who has actually included inputs from external stakeholders to come in? Can you share an example? Just raise your hand so the team knows who's asking. Yes, Samir, I think. Yeah, I think you're on mute. Just unmute yourself and come in, please. Yeah, Samir, I think you're good. No, you're on mute now. You're on mute. Jayashree, you want to check once? I can unmute you, I guess. Okay, let's try with Swagata. Mm-mm-mm. You can unmute yourself, or can I not hear?
Sharon, maybe you should try from your end. So sorry for barging in.
No, that's fine. Try from my end, doesn't try to unmute them, is it?
Yeah. So
See,
sorry, no?
no, that's perfectly fine. No, they are talking permitted, it says. I'm not sure why it's not.
All right.
Uh,
Okay.
you may check out in the attendees list if you could see there, Sharon, in the
Yeah, I can
participants. You can
see,
go
and
in
it
the
says talking permitted.
okay, then not sure.
Add them as a panelist, no? So, and then we can remove them. Let's do it like that. Yeah, Swagata, Samir, can you unmute yourself or?
I think Swagata should try now because she's in the panelist end.
Even Samir is actually.
Right.
Okay, do we have any other volunteers just to check why this is not working? Mhm. Yes, Yatin, why don't you come in? Let's try.
Yeah, I got a request to unmute
Amazing.
and I was
Okay,
able to unmute.
great. Yes. Now you're on mute again.
Yes, I muted myself because I was just helping to check it out, but it is working.
Awesome. Yes. Yes, Yatin, you want to share an example of how you included external
No,
stakeholders designing your TOC?
unfortunately, I'm one of the people who has answered no to the question, earlier question. So no.
Okay, oh, you were just trying to check if this works.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, great. Yes, anyone else in the room who would like to share on how you have actually included external stakeholders while designing your theory of change? There are 28 people who are saying that you have. So would love to hear who they are and how they've used it. No? Okay, you can use the chat box, I guess. But clearly now our video is our yes, exactly. Okay, let's move on. I want all of you to take a minute. And for those of you who have or don't have, from what I said about strengthening your TOC, right? If you all remember, getting different perspective, trying to identify the key outcomes, looking at your different programs. What is one way, if you all could just in one sentence write, what is one way you could strengthen your theory of change, if you have one? Can you use Mentimeter? Is that still working? Do I still have my? Okay, thank you. I really like this assumption should be realistic. I think that's very important. Sometimes we give ourselves too much credit for what we're changing in the world. Clearly track the outcomes. Very nice. Love this on researching global and local practices. I've really found it so helpful. And one tip I would give everybody before starting your own theory of change, identify 4 or 5 organizations which do similar work as yours. Even if it's sort of, little different, it will give you a lot of good, starting point to how you should be looking at this. Clear definitions, bottom up approach, geography wise change. I think that's a discussion in itself. I don't know who's written it, but it's a hot topic right now. Do you change it according to geography, or do you have this overarching goal? um Document in detail, but how much detail? Effective collaboration. Super. Does anyone want to come in on, something that struck you from a theory of change perspective, something you'd like to add to what I've been saying from your own experience? Okay, just have to raise your hand, yeah? Okay, let's move on. Oh, sorry. Yes, Obiageli, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I've got your name right, but please go ahead. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah,
Yatin, how?
sure.
Oh, perfect. Yes.
Okay. Thank you and good morning, everyone. So one thing I think I observed theory of change is most times organizations just prepare theory of change at the onset of a program project, or maybe when they are developing their organizational strategic plans, and then they never go back to it. So theory of change is something that we have to always make reference to whenever we are implementing a program or a project, or whenever we are sort of in a current strategic plan, because it helps us to know whether our activities are leading us to the impact that we want to make. So most times we just develop theory of change and we dump them to it until maybe you aren't meeting up with your target or something went wrong. You can say, oh, what did we even say we are going to do? So you have to go back to it. So no, theory of change is like a living document that you have to review as you are doing your program review. You also be considering your theory of change among the things that you be reviewing during your program get review periods. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. I wish we had more time. I would love to know how, you've used it as a living document, but fingers crossed I come back to you, Obigali, on this. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. I'm saying it very confidently, but I hope I'm saying it correctly. All right.
Yeah, yes,
I
you
am.
are.
Okay, great.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Nainika, one more from you. Would love to hear your input as well.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, and this is just a relief that everyone can talk. Yes.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the things that that I've reflected on recently, and especially through this input, is that the outcome mapping, right? Like there are these one of the formats that you had shown where you have the concept that's written in as the outcome, right? But then when you showed the other format, and we were also advised on this, that you'd actually elaborate on the outcome a little, like what is it towards which your organization is going. Because right now we have a big picture, okay, increased agency, but now, what do you really mean by increased agency, right? So, five people in the organization now, when we're sitting to make the indicators, suddenly it's like, no, but it can be this, it should be this, it can also be this. So, the guiding document, if it is a guiding document, it really needs to be guiding in the true meaning more than a word, I
Yeah.
guess.
No, I
And
100% agree. But this whole thing of I think this and you think this, the best way to do this thing is by actually getting the lived realities of people you're working for. So it's not,
Mhm.
what you think or what I think. It's actually at the end of the day, how do women or farmers or youth or adolescent, etc., look at agency, you know?
Right.
It's about demystifying the concept, but not in from our heads. It's from, again, talking to external stakeholders, right? Or our communities that we work with.
Absolutely. And I think that's the second point, the external stakeholders bit, because it feels like it's someone's task to put this together, or few people. And I think again, I think that's part of the institutionalization process, because what I'm beginning, it's not something that people have done as activities
Hmm.
within the organization, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so just couple of these. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on. And yes, please, I'm loving the chat box. It's distracting, but it's keeping me on my toes. So thank you very much for being active, everybody. Let's move on to the next about, do you think senior leadership in your organization provides visible support, backing? While people, Shishti, I completely agree, right? These jargons of empowerment and agency, and yeah, I know what you mean. All right. Um, Dennis, do you want to come in? Because I think that question came very early on. So it means you have something to contribute to it. Do you want to come in and talk to us about, did you say yes or no? And what do you think about this? Okay, I guess Avinash, yes? Or then, okay, I don't know if he's here, but yeah, let's go with Avinash. Um, you're unmuted, but not sure, can't hear you as of now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So the one thing I want to tell is that theory TOC is more of a strategy for me. Like it gives a broad strategy where I want to start or where I want to stop. The
Mm-hmm.
important piece for me is how I operationalize the TOC. That is the log frame. So when I design the log frame, I should be very specific, like using jargons, the assumptions, the risk. This is very specific and realistic. So that is how I design my projects. Like when I do LFA, I give more time to the LFA. Theory of cheese is more of a strategy for maybe for the senior management to tell, okay, this is what I am starting and this is what I expect from the project.
Yeah, actually, I don't, and again, this is not a technical session. Would love to connect with on a later piece, but I don't see a difference between an LFA and a TOC. Because at the end of the day, what should these frameworks be giving you? They should be giving you your outcomes, your indicators, and then based on the indicators, your tools to make, to get data and make decisions. You see what I mean? So if you keep them as two, I don't see them as two separate things, but I completely understand what you're saying, and thank you.
So that is what you just suggested is for LFA for me, like where I cover everything in the LFA.
Probably, yes. Okay, cool. Yes, Jay Prakash, you could come in. And I hope we have moved on from TOC and we are talking about leadership support, because TOC I can do for like 5 days straight. But yes, okay, Jaiprakash, you're not coming in. Leadership. Anyone wants to talk about senior leadership? Mm,
Are you getting my voice?
yes.
Uh, I think LFA is old tool and TOC is new tool, but purpose is the same of both tools. And level of planning and level of monitoring is different. But in terms of involvement and participation, both has equivalent importance.
Sure, but TOC is not new, by the way. TOC is very, very old, but yeah, sure. I want to hear something on senior leadership support for monitoring and evaluation, either from the 36 who say they have support or from the 8 who say they don't have support. Neeraj, I really hope it's about leadership support, but please come in.
Yeah. So could you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So, definitely the leadership, actually what happened right now, the concept of the MEL is completely changing from the, whatever we have asked the question regarding this. Thus, is still the senior leadership is not in a position and they have the conceptualization like what they have in my mind and what they are to deliver to the field team or the mid team, whatever they have. So
Mhm.
even they have the clear understanding and what should have to be implemented in the organization level at the from the bottom line. So still we are not getting the clear picture to what in which direction we should have to move go through
Mhm.
them. So that's, and we are facing such kind of the challenge like that in the email system right now. Some told us you have to go that way. Some told us you have to follow the LFA. You some told follow the theory of change. But where is the common platform? Where is the common tools? So we can follow the everyone and to remain in the single page. So that can collect the whole document and hold the data from the field and can we can analyze and can interpret and back to the community and the other stakeholders. This is the major challenge we are facing right now, right? In that cases.
And Neeraj, thank you so much for bringing this up. Like some are asking for log frame, some are asking for theory of change. And we did a recent, like a very detailed landscape study with ISDM, Indian School of Development Management, where we realized that most of these frameworks that are being used are being donor driven. Ye donor
Yes,
ne,
yes,
this donor is saying, give me a LFA. So then we are going crazy like making an LFA. This donor is saying making a theory of change. But that is why we are doing this session today. The reason we are doing this session today is that we are not trying to report. We are trying to see what is our target and are we achieving it or not. And sometimes at the end of when we change the shift of that thinking, right? That it is not to
yes,
report, it is to make decisions. Then I think that leadership buy-in comes in a little bit more.
yes.
Um, so thank you so much. I'm going to move on. I think there's lots of hands, and I'm going to be a little brutal right now. I'm very sorry, but I need to finish a few. I want to get touch upon each topic as much as possible. I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to go to the next one. Already a lot of stuff has come in the chat box, but what do you need from leadership? If you have to anonymously tell your boss, like, I want to do meal, and what would you need from them? I agree, Minnie. It's a devil and deep blue sea piece, but I think I have some solutions. I don't know if we have time for that, but yes, I agree. Budget, love it. Funds, okay. Clarity, that's very interesting, actually. Consensus, very nice. Trust us, we know what you do and where you want to go, okay. Very nice. Patience, wisdom, love it. Dedicated team. Very nice. So nice. Let's see, maybe we put this into a blog and, talk about what does leadership need to do to institutionalize MEL. Amazing. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Do your non-monitoring evaluation, accountability, and learning teams understand and value meal? Suzanne, you have asked the most brilliant question. And I wish there were more donors like yourself who acknowledges and, understands the value of M&E. I think it then boils down to, capacity building of not just the NGOs, but also of donors. And that's something that we've been actually thinking a lot about in terms of, every time it's the NGO that needs to be saved or needs to be spoken to. So very heartening to see a note like this. Thank you. All right. So 23. Anyone wants to come in as to why do you think that they don't value meal? I think I touched upon a few things, but any thoughts on why? Any experiences with what you heard from your teams? I see a hand up. Yeah, Minnie.
Yeah, hi Sharon and hi everyone. I take care of the MIS and part of the monitoring and evaluation in the organization. And one of the toughest thing of my job is to make people on the ground understand the importance of reporting and understanding the outcomes and the outputs.
Yeah.
Outputs and the outcomes, I would say. Um, and that's because, they're so glued and their world is a little smaller, based on what they do. And they think that's what they are there for. The
Mhm.
bigger picture of the organization is not very visible to them, even though we try to include them in our vision goals and whatever. But obviously, they come with that background and that baggage कि हमें काम तो field में करना है. That that's where my main work is. And
Yeah.
if I'm giving my 100% there, why do I have to understand what needs to go and be reported to the org, or what do
Yeah.
I calculate as my outcome or output and then plan accordingly? for a
Mhm.
better strategy. So I
Yeah.
think one of the reason is that they do not understand the bigger picture of the org. Uh, you know.
Yeah, and Minnie, I'd like to just build on what you're saying. Another thing that has worked really well for us to get buy-in is to make it a part of the program. Not have it as an external thing like, okay, now this is the timeline where you're going to collect data. So, like I said, a lot of times when, it becomes that, array, inka form fill, because that's how they think. And I completely agree with you, right? But if we make it a part that when you're onboarding, this is the kind of data you collect, make it again lean, easy, help them on those parts. Or, after every 2 months, when you're doing these interactions with youth or women, etc., do ask these 2 or 3 questions, send a voice note to us. So I think it's about embedding our data collection into their everyday work rather than saying, hey, now here is, the new tool, go and collect it. So I think that's worked very well to move that mindset from an additional task to saying this is part of what I do in my program. I hope that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah, Sharon, that does. But when I'm talking about, it's also about understanding if you're collecting data and we're giving you a report back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, how are you reading that report to strategize or plan better for the next quarter?
Yeah. I
That's
think
again, I mean, they would collect the data because unko karna hai, that's part of their role.
yeah. Yeah.
But the whole point is also going back and we give them that report back, analyzing कि okay इस month में इस location से आपको ज़्यादा drop footfall मिला है, so focus on that. You getting quality, better quality with less effort.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
don't. I mean that's.
Yeah. No, I agree. But I think
that's-
that's also something that, we should be thinking about as to how we make the information more digestible, because analytics is something like, if you remember what I said also, analytics is also a skill. It's something that we at Fourth Wheel also are doing so many internal trainings now. Like, how do you read data? How do you make it easier? So even though we all are researchers and know our Excel and our R and our SPSS, analytics is still a skill which we need to train teams on. But I hear you.
Yeah,
I
I take that back with me, but yeah, that's.
Anyway, I also think, meeting a lot of like-minded folk here. So please feel free to get in touch with me and we can have, I mean, this is what I love to do. Agree to disagree, but yes, we keep in touch on this one. All right. I think we have discussed. I don't want to get into buy-in. I'm gonna move a little fast. Um, Also, really thank you everyone for being so um, articulate and sharing so much insight. I'm gonna totally geek out on my Friday evening on the chat, but thank you very much for your active participation, all of you. All right. Um, I think we've again kind of established that teams don't have skills, but what do you think? And I think the next piece is about um, you know, what are the skills? But I know it's going to be, oh, nice. We're seeing more of. And when I say teams, I think I also mean specific research M&E teams. Tucci, this is so beautiful what you say, in terms of it's just saying I've reached 100 women. And I always tell my clients this: you've reached 100 women and they've come regularly to your program. So what? Are they, so what happened? And sometimes we're so happy with saying, yeah, okay, we reached our 100 girls or our 100 women or 100 farmers, that we're really not asking the so what questions. And like you said rightly, for asking the right questions, pushing for more than just a I reach so many. So love it. It's true, and it's not sometimes, unfortunately, it's most times the problem is that. But very, very nice. Anyone wants to comment on skills? Can each of you think if there was one thing you would like to teach your team about? One. Okay, I know the list can be really long, but if there's one thing you would like to teach your teams or want your teams to learn, what would it be? I love how communication comes first. Why do we collect? Lovely. This is beautiful. This is what I imagined would come, but thank you. I'm going to keep it on for a bit more. Yes, SM, I'm sorry, I can't see your first name, but you can come in while we have the chat on.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, every time I hear someone's voice, it just makes me very happy. Yes, you are. Go on.
Great. And I'm happy here to see you and see you happy, Sharon, every time you hear everyone's voices.
No,
And we've
that's
worked together. I'm from Shapurji Palanji, Sheetal Arora here.
Oh, Sheetal.
Uh,
Yes, Sheetal.
Hi, hi. One capacity gap. I'm straight away coming to the question. I'm not taking too much of time. Um, uh, M&E is my passion as well. So, I connect and I realize how happy you will be to understand how difficult it is to implement M&E at NGO level or donor level or any management level, etc. One capacity gap, I wouldn't say it is a capacity or a particular skill, but I feel everyone needs to have an understanding of why the data is important. Why are we collecting what we are collecting and why we are studying what we are studying? So that understanding, I would say, I don't know how do I term it as. I'm not as great M&E expert like you are, but I feel this question of why and not what is very important
No,
for
I
any.
I completely agree with, what you're saying in terms of, yeah, like people know what to collect, right? Like you go and do this survey, but I think that's also what Minnie was saying on some lines, right? Like this whole understanding of why are you doing it and what can you take away from it is something that's definitely lacking. Yes, Aruna,
Yeah.
would definitely
Yeah,
like you.
and
Thank you so
I
much, Sheetal.
Thank
Good to
you.
see
Thank
you
you.
and hear from you again. Yes, Aruna,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, I feel that one must have courage, because what have we seen in teams, we agree, we say yes, but we don't take action because we don't have courage to take action. So I feel that the courage, how to build that courage and how to get that confidence is very important, and it all depends on us actually. Now I am a 70 years old and in this profession, and I always feel okay if I don't know all these jargons and new lingo, then young ones feel, oh, she doesn't understand. And I feel, oh, they are just using jargons, and it's only, new wine in old bottle, or old wine in new bottle rather. So, how to get out of that, this courage and this understanding each other, because that is where the conflict comes. That's what I feel.
absolutely. And I think that's why these workshops and these interactions are so interesting for me because I would never think of courage. It's at the end of the day, if we are not taking action or we are not able to use that data, it is about putting your foot down and having the courage to say my program isn't working. So uh, I don't know. I hope it's not old wine in new bottle, Aruna, but I hear what you're saying, and it's something that I will definitely take away from me when when I'm working with teams about how do you build that sense of accountability, but also backed up with courage, right? Like what's gonna happen? What's the worst that's gonna happen if you
Yeah.
say that I'm failing at some level? So thank you for bringing that insight in. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Um. Yes. Let's go to indicators, and this is a big piece. So, do you think your indicators are, directly linked to goals and outcomes? Or are all like my favorite term these days with my team who's present would be laughing, but is data fatigue. Like, why are we sitting with someone sent us 500 different Excel sheets? So, yeah, like, do you think it's linked to outcomes, to goals? Are you able to do that well? All right. I'd now like to also, do you think do you use lean data principles? Are there few relevant and actionable indicators, or do you still have everything that you would want to have? Awesome. This is somewhere I would definitely like someone to talk to me about how lean data principles, few relevant actionable indicators have helped. Any examples? Anyone like to come in? The 17 who say yes. Can we have some voice here on who it's working for? I know the ones who don't and the 12, but anyone who wants to come in on how you manage to even do that process. Prioritization is a huge challenge. But Sangamitra, try these two things. It's been helping me personally, my teams, as well as my clients. When you're looking at an indicator, number one, ask yourself, can I take action about it? Think about the example where percentage of girls who have access to a toilet is your program, is it going to be able to solve for that indicator? Number one. So can you take action on that? If people say 20% don't have, can you actually do something? Is it part of your program design? So try this. Maybe prioritization helps like that. And also very happy to, talk to you more about how you can use that lean data approach, but try these two things. It should help.
Sure.
Anyone? Yes, I see someone who wants to. Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Trupti, right?
Yes.
Yes, Trupti.
Yes. Thank you. So I want to take an example of one of my previous programs that I was working on. It was a maternal and child health program.
Mhm.
So we had strict, let's say, mandate from UNICEF to use only 5 indicators. And that was really hard because the program had expanded in its scope from what it was before. So it was a new iteration of the program. So it was expanding on its scope a lot. So yet we still had to have only 5 indicators.
Mhm.
And the way we worked within our program was to have a group of technical advisors as well, people, mainly medical professionals like neonatal nurses, pediatricians, OBGYNs, etc., who are giving technical input to the proposal. So I think what I did if I had come outright with it, that probably wouldn't have been acceptable. But what I did was I went and spoke with the technical advisory team and said that we need only 3 indicators, although it was 5,
Mhm.
because I wanted 2 of them to be qualitative. When speaking with technical advisors like doctors, especially, they are mostly focused on quantitative indicators. Now, we can't have just 5 of the quantitative indicators. So the first thing I wanted to bring in was a balance of the type of indicators. And also, it was donor driven. 5, I think, is less. I would most probably want to have at least, I would say, 8. But that's not the point of this discussion. So yeah, I thought the way to do it was to bring balance. So I hid that we need 5. I said we need only 3. That way we could have a balance between the two. Thanks.
No, that's amazing. And I don't know where you're getting these numbers from, Trupti. Would love to take this offline, but why 8 and why 5? I mean, I get the donor-driven 5, but I'm curious to know why you would say 8. But just to kind of talk to your point, right? I think it's important to be conscious of how many indicators you have, but I don't think it needs a number, right? Because, for example, healthcare access that I started this session with, for me, wait time, cost, and distance. These are the three things that I know. Again, if you look at the chat box and what I've written, I can take action on it, and it's linked to what I'm trying to do through my program. So, these are the three that I would prioritize. But in something else, like say women livelihoods, I think then you could have more, because then there is a social aspect, economic aspect, participation aspect. So yeah, but I hear you, and amazing. I see. Okay. All right. Let's. Um. Do you? I think we should move on. This is.
Sorry, Tadisirai. Sorry, I guess I was just following up on the earlier question. The other thing I was thinking was, yeah, in terms of, number of indicators, I think part of it is what you're trying to track. So, it depends on whether you're tracking all your outcomes, all your activities, and all your outputs, whether, because a big thing that I come across is, for each indicator at outcome or output level, do we want just the one indicator, or do we want multiple ones to explore different facets of that outcome, or even activities? So, for example, we've got projects here where they're talking about activities, and part of me is wondering, is it more useful to know how many people are being reached or are participating with those activities, or how often the activities are happening, or how long, the duration of the activities is happening? So that's another part where I feel like it is quite difficult. It's often quite difficult to, get the right number of indicators, to get a sense of what the right number of indicators is as well.
I
Thank you.
agree. Thank you so much for bringing this up, right? So right now, I think our dialogue is a lot focused on the outcomes, and a very core part of what data collection also includes is how many were reached, at what duration, exactly what you mentioned. But I think what right now, I think it's more on what outcomes are you going to be tracing, right? Because all of this becomes monitoring data, which you should anyway be having systems to record on a regular basis. But these outcomes are something that you can't collect on a regular basis, is what, because it takes time, right, to happen. So thank you for bringing in the part that indicators are not just about measuring outcomes or impacts. They also should be certain indicators which are output related, activity related. But I think um, yeah, I think I was taking a very myopic, very close focus on the outcomes piece. But thank you for bringing that perspective in. All right. Wow, I see that lots of you have data collection tools adapted to the local context. I'm glad, and I hope, like I said, you can involve more stakeholders, you can contextualize, use, local languages, and I'm glad I see. Okay, so I see fewer people involving stakeholders in reviewing or testing. So that's something, maybe an idea or action or solution all of you take back to your teams to ensure that tools are not just made in a boardroom or behind a computer, but they are validated by different voices. Again, if they know what data you're collecting, it might be easier for them to digest the report once you send it to them as well. So involving them in the process is always very helpful. Moving on. Let's do this one. What do you think will make if there is one thing to make your tools more inclusive or accurate, what would you do? Heavy. Nice jargon, whoever put the first one in. Standardize input. Okay. You mean keep it close-ended, I'm assuming. Yes, always pilot, 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 pilot. Okay. All right, for lack of time, I'm going to move on. I'm going to look at, I know what I'm doing on my Friday evening, but all right. Do you all use tech for data collection? Not close-ended, but have as many drop-downs and keywords. Fair enough. Okay, amazing. I'm going to come to a question in 2 minutes. Do you use technology for real-time visualization? Gautam and Bhagavat, y'all have yeses and lots. Y'all should come in and tell us how you do it. Or write in the chat box. Yeah, Sheetal, I agree with you. I'm quite a black and white person, but I agree with you. It's more like, do you or do you not? But sure, I will ensure it's there next time. Yes, I think, okay, so I think Bhagwat or Gautam, since y'all have said yes, and I know I can see that y'all have said yes, in case y'all want to come in, the team's already unmuted y'all. 100% Zangini, in terms of, you have to understand why 70% said something. And you need to have a triangulation of, or a combination of quantitative and qualitative. There's no beating that. And sometimes, we end up with lots of numbers, but what do those even say? So 100% with you on that. All right. Thank you, Abhijit. Very nice. I think for people who want to know what tech we're talking about, I think Abhijit has kind of put um, something nice. Okay, this one is one of my favorite questions. What is one tech upgrade that would improve your M&E in your organization? I'm very curious to know what y'all would choose. One tech upgrade. What would you do in terms of tech for your organization that would improve your M&E? Dedicated person is still not tech, but I like it. I know what I empathize with why whoever said that. Apps, okay. Translations, okay. Actually, I have been noticing, there are for especially for Indian languages, I don't know in the African subcontinent how it is, or is there any apps that you all use, but voice to text has become really challenging for us. In Hindi, it happens, but we've been struggling. So if anyone knows any good AI tools for voice to text in different Indian languages, looking for recommendations and suggestions. We tried Bhashini. It's not been too good for us. Like they have some, but anything else? Thank you, Samina. Whisper. Okay, lovely. We'll check. Jayashri, Shivani, just get these in because we've been struggling a lot. Even in the African context, if anyone knows anything of, because we have a couple of things happening in Africa as well, any voice to text languages would be great. Okay, love it. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on. Do you have an analytics plan to review your data periodically? Okay, I take back what I said. If there's one thing you all need to do after this session, then it is go back to why you're collecting data, look at each indicator, ask the so what question, and create an analytics plan. Please. And for those of you who have mentioned yes, amazing. I would love to hear from someone who has created that and how you kind of used it. Would be amazing to hear from someone who's actually used something like this. Anyone? Anyone wants to share how like about their analytics plan and how they've used it? Okay, I do want to leave some Okay, let's take 1 minute to really think about this one. What at this moment, what is one question you answer through your data? What do you answer? And it can be very specific that, are girls more confident? Is my program leading to climate resilience? Progress. But what? I mean, I want you all to be very specific. Progress means what? Vision means what? Improvement means what? Targets met means what? I want to see something like beneficiaries are continuing higher education. Impact means what? Right track means what? This one's a good one. Are girls getting better in foundational learning concepts? Are children achieving, I don't know what LO is, but are women taking? Yes. This is how specific we need to be when we are looking at our data. When you start using these big pieces on vision, progress, targets, we are doing the same thing as what our donors are doing. Let's be specific. Yes, Bhagwat, like behavior change. Again, I would say, you should go even one round deeper. Behavior, what kind of behavior change? Are they affording affordable health services? That's the way we need to think about looking at our data. Specifics. And I'm really glad we have, yes. Are we reaching the right beneficiaries and achieving intended outcomes? Again, too broad. When you all think about analytics and answering questions, your questions must be extremely specific. Can women decide on whom and when to marry? Because then you are able to put a baseline and an end line number to it. So I hope you take away something from it. Let's move on. I have a few more left, and then I want to do a little bit more reflection. Mini, that's fine. Like even if you have 3 different groups, different interventions, that's perfectly fine. And you will have, specific indicators for specific programs. But even over here, you should have then 3. Like in this, you could have just chosen one and write one, like don't make it very generic, because then for you to even talk to your teams about it becomes very difficult. Adaptation and change, but adaptation and change is linked to some question you want to answer. Jay. Okay, anyone wants to talk about a policy that they have on data ethics and confidentiality? There's also a lot right now in this space. It would be amazing for someone, for us to all exchange these policies and to kind of adapt, use. Thank you, Dia. That's also very useful for each of you who don't have a policy to look at, but get this in place, sooner than later, because then that can also translate down to your teams. All right. Are your staff trained in data privacy and responsible use? We need to answer your question. I think it's first you start with a more org level perspective of outcomes and you do the mapping of that. I wish I had more time. I can show you something we recently did. And then you have discussions with different teams to say, this is what our org looks like. And, these are how our program is feeding into the org goals. So it shouldn't look considerably different depending on, again, whether, it's a multidisciplinary approach, what it is. But yeah. Restroom gossips. I'm not sure what you mean, Aruna, but sure, okay. All right. I'm going to skip this one because this is the most important. Is your data used to inform program or strategic decisions? And that's great, Dia, that it's embedded in your curriculum, and that's an example of institutionalizing something. So that's perfect. Okay. Um, I'm gonna call I'm going to call on some of you to give me an example. I know we have very limited time, but we can take maybe one or two examples on how was data used to inform your program or strategic decision. Can someone come in? This is, I think, the most crucial part, which I think a lot of people over here would like to take away from. So, anyone? Yeah, Dia.
Yeah. So, hi Sharon, thank you so much. It's really igniting to hear so many things about data and theory of change. So, yeah, regarding strategic decision, it doesn't have to be always like increasing when we see the data. Like this year, we have achieved 60%. Next year, we want to aim for 80% because we also need to see our capacity as well. And if even if we don't achieve, like should we stick to that particular percentage for the next year, or we should actually step down ahead? So that's how data can help us to make the strategic decision, not only always to go higher and higher every year or so, but also like thinking about our own capacity and based on that making decisions. It's something like I have experienced that data definitely helped.
No, that's a great point actually. It's not just saying, "Acha, ye acha nahi lag raha, so let's do this." It's sorry, I'm so sorry about the constant Hindi switch, but that this doesn't look good, and so let's do this. But it's also about saying, okay, but these targets are probably not realistic, or let's relook at our targets as well. So
Absolutely.
100%. Anyone else would like to share an example of how you have used data to inform program or strategic decisions? Okay. All right. I think this is quite similar. So, to close, I'm closing with not too much time, but can all of us reflect for a minute and think about what will you take back to your organization or do differently after this session? Thank you. That makes my day. Give it a good 1 minute, think about it. Um, I wish I could say, I mean, in our in-person workshops, I always say I'm gonna hold you to it, but I guess not this time. But yes, very nice. I love how you've written self-growth. I would still use the word organization, but very nice. Amazing. All of you who want to go in the direction of lean and focused data, like kudos. And here to help in any way you want, in just quick conversation, examples, like, we're there, and please, I mean, it's pretty much what we live, breathe, and do every day. So it would be really nice for anyone who's kind of making that switch from manual to automation, analytics. Amazing. Community of practice. Actually, we do have some. I think, Jayashri, this has come up quite a bit. So let's see how, we can kind of onboard more people onto the WhatsApps we have, onto our LinkedIn communities, onto our Substack. So we do have a few communities at Fourth Wheel, and we'll definitely onboard at least all of you who signed up today. Amazing. All right. And last question, I think this is on leadership. I think we've already covered this. I would like to move into my final pieces. I can't see the chat box right now, so bear with me for just a second. All right, so was clearly not too bad on time, but I still think we have a few more minutes, maybe 5 minutes to take a few questions. I'll be happy to hear from anyone who still feels something's unanswered, who needs some resources, use the chat box. But before some of you leave, I want to extend a very heartfelt thank you. Given us a lot of food for thought. Like I said multiple times, I'm going to totally look at all the questions and answers in the chat box, look at the polls again, try to make some blog posts on what we learned from today. And would you be able to share an example of the data analysis plan? Yes, Tucci, we can put it up. We will look at the kind of reference materials you'll have asked for, and we will try and do our best to provide as many as possible, and that at least we have access to when we send out the thank you emails. So, like, clarity on output and outcome indicators. Yeah, that's a whole training course that we offer. But if you have any specifics, just get in touch with me. I'm on LinkedIn. We also have I don't think I have my ID anymore here, but it's Sharon at thefourthwheel.com. Please do write to me. And Gautam, if you could be a little bit more specific on what reference materials, but I'll stop talking now. And if anyone has any final words, any questions, any reflections, I'm happy to take them. And I'm here for the next 5 minutes.
Hi, Sharon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. It has been like a wonderful section. Going through the theory of change, getting the leadership, have a buy-in in monitoring and evaluation within the organization. So my question lies around measuring of organizational impacts. So I have a situation where there is this confusion between should organizations center their measurement at outcome level or output level. Yeah, because
are you asking if there should be measurement at an output level or an outcome level? Is that what you're asking?
yeah. So like what do you advise for a capacity development organization that is mostly training people? And you know that when you train people, there are tendency that after the training, you may not have control over what happens. For instance, if you are training people on resource mobilization and you are giving them so many approaches to resource mobilization, it's expected that after the training, they should go back to their various organizations, start applying those processes, approaches to see how they can improve their resource mobilization efforts. Is either by increasing their number of reserves or increasing their total budget for the year or income flow for the year. So now, after the training, you definitely do not have that upper hand on how the participants or the organizations go along with practicing what you have taught them. Now, the organization wants to measure their impact.
Yeah.
And some of them are saying, okay, because they don't have control of what happens after the training, should they just limit their measurement at output level, which is just telling them that you train so number of organizations in resource mobilization. But again, I was on the opinion that it shouldn't be that way, because your training is not just how many organizations are you training. It's about
I
how
can
we are
answer your
able.
question. I can answer your question really quickly. But I completely hear you. So there are, this is how I approach, a training program or a capacity building session. So number one is in the short term, right after the program, you must account for what is the increase in knowledge, right? Increase in knowledge and skills, you must measure. You are accountable for that. So it's not just, oh, I have trained 100 people, but you should have a baseline and end line before the program, after the program, to talk about what is the knowledge and skills. That's number one. The next is after 3 to 6 months, depending on how intensive the program is, you will look at application of knowledge and skills, which means if you have taught someone on a job skill or if you have taught someone on financial literacy or digital literacy, are they applying those skills in their context, whatever their context is? So that we usually do from phone surveys, depending, we take a smaller sample, and in the long term, which is 6 to 9 months, or it depends on what exactly your program is, you look at change in condition. So because you have learned, you have got knowledge and skills, you have then applied them in, either you have got a job or you have a bank account or you've started using a computer. There is a change in condition, which is basically you get a higher income, you have more savings. So this is the way to look at it. So it's not just should I do this or should I do that. You have to take a long term lens. Then it depends on the funds you have, the kind of program you have done, whether you want to just stop at that the knowledge and skills, I have taught these people this, the test is showing me that they are displaying knowledge and skill improvements. Or do you want to say because they are showing this knowledge and skill, they now have jobs or they have bank accounts or they have a computer, access to digital, and because of that, then you have your change in condition. So that's my two piece on how to approach it. But I'd be very, very happy to have a detailed discussion with you on another platform. But I hope this answers your question. All right. Thank you, everyone who still stayed. I'm very grateful. Have a great Friday evening and look forward to connecting with all of you on other platforms. And honestly, thank you very much for the in depth insight and just staying with us throughout the session. Thank you very much. Good evening.